it'll say we're live.
Hey everyone, I'm Apoorv Dwivedi from Fixer Marketing, and today I'm joined by Paul Bartel from Changescape Web and Jeff Stack from Tylerica Marketing Systems out of Austin, Texas. Two of our other guest hosts, Ken Tucker from Changescape Web and Ian Cantle from Outsourced Marketing. They're normally with us, but they couldn't make it today, but they've provided some answers that we're going to add to this as well. So let's get into it, right? Welcome to today's episode titled SEO 2024, Mastering the New Age of Search Engine Optimization. And so today we're going to dive into the latest strategies to keep your website, your listings, and your content at the top of search engine results. We're going to hear from our experts on the call, and we're going to discuss the evolving nature of SEO and its increasing importance in digital marketing for small businesses. So we're going to start to get into it, but maybe just Jeff and Paul, what are your thoughts on SEO? Is it increasing importance for small businesses? Has it changed over the last year? What are your thoughts? Where does it fit into marketing strategy?
Paul, you want to jump in, or do you want me to?
Yeah, Jeff, go ahead and start, and then I'll play what Ian had to say, and then we can go on from there.
Okay. Yeah, I think search engine optimization, SEO, is and will continue to be critical to being found online. How it gets done and how results are presented to people doing searches is going to change drastically. We'll get into that in the podcast. But yeah, I think it continues to be one of the central roles of getting your digital assets, specifically your website, found.
Yeah, for sure. What are your thoughts, Paul?
Yeah, I don't know that it has fundamentally changed. I think that certain things have become a lot more important. They've always, like video, okay? Video is always, it's been there for a few years now, but I think it's becoming more important. Voice search, it's not exactly new, but it's going to become much more important. So I think that those basics have been there for a few years now, but it's like video. I think it's gotten to a point where for a long time, small local businesses, they could get away without really using video, and I think it's getting to a point where they just can't do that anymore. So I think the importance of some of these things has changed. Like Jeff just said, the importance of these things have changed, and like Google's core vitals, which I think we're going to get into a little more later, that is going to become a lot more important. Web user experience and website load speed is going to become a lot more important. And I think Ian recorded an answer for us here, so let's see what he had to say.
So the question I'm answering is, what are the top SEO strategies that businesses should focus on in 2024? Well, I'm going to start with some interesting new developments from Google. It's called the Google Search Generative Experience. And this is a new form of search engine experience that Google is rolling out, and they're testing it in select territories. And it provides an AI-generated result to the user's queries. It's too soon for a surefire way to optimize the content for Google's SGE, as it's being called. However, focusing on content that directly and comprehensively answers users' queries can ensure you maintain relevance and help you in this as it develops. The things that this AI generative result or experience is looking for are opinions or analysis. It's looking for things that specifically answer questions, and it's also looking for topical niche authority. And it's also looking for new or novel information. So if you can provide that kind of information today, it's going to help you as this new Google Search Generative Experience evolves. The next thing I think you need to think about for 2024's SEO you need to remember that Google uses a mobile-first indexing algorithm. And this is really important. It's not new. They've been doing this for probably 5 years now when they transitioned from a desktop algorithm to a mobile-first algorithm. But what it means is those businesses who have not optimized their website for mobile, smartphone, tablet use need to do that today. It's only going to hurt you more if you don't do this. The reason Google has moved to the mobile-first algorithm is because the statistics are showing, and have shown for years now, that more and more people are searching for information and answers on their smartphones, even more than on their desktop. Of course, there are exceptions. If you're a B2B business and primarily people are searching from their desktops in their workplaces in order to find answers to their questions, that might be a different kind of scenario. But remember, Google is the gateway to the people you're trying to reach. And if Google is optimizing mobile first, then it behooves you to optimize your mobile first as well. So some things to think about. Your website has to be optimized for smartphones. It has to be fast, meaning it loads quickly. Not only do you need to worry about the speed, you need to also look at the Google Core Web Vitals. These are really important because this is all about Google's measurement of user experience, and it affects ranking. And so you need to make sure that you're not hurting yourself with any issues related to Google Core Web Values. It's really about creating a great user experience for people on their mobile phones when they visit your website. The next thing you need to think about for SEO in 2024 is just, this is nothing new again, but it is the basis for search engine optimization, and that's the role of high quality, engaging content. Now, this is evolving, and I'll share a little bit about that, but you have to be creating good quality content to attract people to your website, to engage Google to share your information when people are searching for it. So you have to be creating high quality content that people are looking for, that in essence is what the SEO game is all about. And this isn't going to change in 2024. However, it will continue to evolve, and we need to evolve with it. Google wants you to be sharing your point of view on topics. Google also wants you to share more information about who the author is and what makes you an authoritative figure in the space. It wants you to be answering people's questions that they're searching for, and it wants this information to be shared in multiple types of media that people prefer to engage in. So some people prefer to read blogs, so it's text-based. Some people prefer to watch long-form videos like webinars, and some people prefer to view short-term videos like TikTok or Reels. And of course, some people prefer audio. The next thing you need to think about is building a strong backlink strategy. Backlinks are really important because this is a signal to Google that other people, other websites of authority value the content on your website. So you need to have an active and a proactive approach to gaining new backlinks on your website, sharing content of value, and getting those links back to your site. The thing you also need to remember is to watch out for what's called toxic backlinks. And these are backlinks from poor quality websites with low authority that could actually bring your ranking factor down from backlinks. So don't just, this is usually where you need to engage a good quality company, an agency that understands how backlinks work, what toxic ones are, what they aren't, and how to get on good authoritative websites. Incorporating multimedia and content, rich content also helps for better engagement. Long form content like video, converting it into short form content, audio, this is very shareable as well. And of course, you can share it on your social media networks. Another ranking factor in 2024 is really focusing on local SEO tactics. So we talk a lot about this on Marketing Guides for Small Business podcast. You need to claim and optimize your Google business profile. This is your main conduit between your business and your business's website and Google. And if you don't claim it, and if you don't maximize the optimization opportunities on Google Business Profile, you are only hurting your business, and you're allowing a big gaping hole for your competitors to come in and take prominent position in your space. You need to grow reviews. You need to be asking your satisfied customers, clients, or patients to leave a review on Google and other authoritative sites, but obviously Google comes first. You need to be building directory citations. This is a form of backlinks, and it's very easy to get on those. And you need to be creating content that other people will share and link to. You need to structure your content in response to common questions or inquiries related to the topics you're targeting, the services or products you provide. And you need to be creating content in the format favored for snippets. Google snippets are the things that pop up first when somebody's searching on a particular topic. And Google really likes bullet points, tables, or short paragraphs that are informative. You can be guest posting or guest podcasting, and this is very valuable for your local business. And you need to be creating great SEO optimized content on a great SEO optimized website that answers questions that people are looking for related to your business, your products, your services, and the questions that people are looking for. And keep creating content that's valuable on an ongoing basis. And lastly, if you want to raise the bar even higher, get your schema on so that you can show up for local search snippets that are very valuable. And that's it. There's lots of other things going on in the SEO world. Some of them are very new. Some of them we don't know how they're going to impact local businesses. But if you focus on
Wow. I mean, there's so much great content there, right? We're very fortunate to have Ian Cantle from Outsourced Digital Marketing with us as a guest. Ian is an absolute expert in this space, as you can tell. We could spend a lot of time there, just like everything that he covered there. It's kind of like a complete SEO 101, 201 overview type thing. So there's a lot there to unpack. Paul, I know you're probably itching to get in there because there's so many things that Ian had said, but from your perspective, what types of things do you think out of what Ian said you'd like to highlight or maybe reiterate for our audience?
Well, I think something, a lot of times with SEO, customer, they don't, it's not something you see, it's not like you put a video on the website. There's a lot of things that go on in the background, and he talked about schema or structured data, and something we talked about in the past. It's one of those technical things that you'll never see it because it's metadata, which it's data about data. It helps search engines and crawlers understand what your website is about, what certain pieces of content are about. And I think it's important for small businesses to realize that when they hire a marketing agency that and they're doing these things, there's a lot of things they're doing in the background that you don't necessarily see. And this schema markup or structured data is one of those things. And a lot of times, like I said, there's things that are being done in the background that you just don't see, but they make a difference in your ranking, and they make a difference to the search engines.
Yeah, Paul, if I can jump in on that, I think it's important for people who maybe are a little more casual in terms of their SEO knowledge to recognize that Google is constantly changing things, updating their algorithms, and experimenting with features that they may keep in the future or may not. And the schema markup plays right into that. There's a lot of things that can be tagged and coded on the website that if you have that markup in place, your website could be showing up in search results for things that it otherwise wouldn't. But that markup in place doesn't mean that you do it once and it sticks forever, because Google may decide that what they're showing this month, they're not going to show next month. And then you have a different set of markup that matters. So the takeaway on that point is either spend the time yourself or work with somebody that keeps up with what's going on. And I think if we get into the broader what's 2024 and beyond looking like, there's a lot to keep up with and a lot to look at. So I think we'll dig into that a little bit more, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
SEO is not a one and done thing, and I think that's a common misconception is that things change, and 10 years ago, things were a lot different, and
Yeah, you could just stuff keywords and win, right?
right, exactly, and Google figured that out, and goes back to what you said about changing the algorithms, and you can get penalized, and you do not want what they refer to as a hard penalty, because that's if you get a soft penalty, which is usually you get flagged by something in the algorithm, that's usually fairly easy to fix. If you get a hard penalty which means a real person actually looked at something and said you're violating our policies, that's a problem. And keyword stuffing can lead to that. So yeah, it's not like I said, it's constantly changing, and I think that pace of change is it's going to increase, and it's going to be more and more difficult for individuals, small business owners to keep up with these things themselves. I mean, and besides, don't you have a business to run?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what you talk about there with the penalties is so true, right? In the world of SEO, search engine optimization, there's always been people that think that they can game the system, right? That they're gonna somehow be smarter than Google or Alphabet, and the tens of thousands of software engineers and PhDs and people that they employ to run this multi-billion-dollar organization. And so people are always trying to game the system, right? And one of the things Google has said always from the beginning is it's about providing the best results that the user is looking for, right?
Mhm.
So don't try to game the system. In fact, over the last year, right, like Jeff mentioned, Google's constantly evolving and improving, and the search engines are constantly improving. They released four core updates to their search algorithm. And the big one in September that people are still talking about is the helpful content update. And basically just saying that, look, we're looking for content that is not designed just for SEO purposes. We're looking for content that is going to be helpful for the user. And that's so important for what you say. So again, there was a lot there in what Ian had said, but I wanted to unpack some of those things that maybe we should spend a little bit of time on, right? So if we take a look at how SEO has evolved, right? We talked about kind of the constant updates and the helpful content update. There's a few other things that were really big in there that Ian touched on as well. The rise of voice search and its implications, right? So, I saw some data that said 4 out of 10 U.S. adults perform at least one voice search every day, right? So if you think about all the different tools now that we're using for voice search, Siri, Alexa, Google Home, other smart devices that are there. Voice is just kind of growing and growing and growing, and 85% consider voice to be the future. Some of the other ones that were in there, they mentioned video. Video is just absolutely exploded over the last couple of years, right? So YouTube itself, but then video on other platforms, right? Video on Facebook and Instagram, video on TikTok, video on other platforms. Things like visual search, right? So when people are actually using their the camera on their phone to take photos or videos of things, and the search engine's interpreting what that is, right? Started out with things like QR codes. Now it's actually, the AI has gotten so much more comprehensive and so much more advanced with that. And even this whole world of AI, right? The impact of AI. So over the last year, just absolute explosion with OpenAI and ChatGPT, and then everyone tried to respond to that, right? So, Ian mentioned Google's search generative experience, which is, Google's always used AI in their search algorithms, but now they're talking about using generative AI, which is a type of AI that ChatGPT is in their responses. Same thing, you saw kind of Bing come up, Microsoft, big investor in OpenAI, and they've been really, really quick moving with this, and they've started to gain some traction against Google. Still not, a big challenger to them, but they seem to be gaining ground there. Some of the other things, right? Featured snippets. Featured snippets are getting more and more important. And so featured snippets are, when you search something online and you see like an FAQ or a question or an answer or something that's pulled out of a website or a web page and it's highlighted in the search. Those things are really, really being increasingly important. And when you have good quality schema, that helps you to rank for things like featured snippet. And then, Paul, you were mentioning the user experience in Core Web Vitals. Do you want to tell our audience just a little bit about what those are and the importance of those?
Yeah, Core Web Vitals. I won't go too deep into it, but it really comes down to user experience. It's like your first contentful paint, cumulative layout shift. It's you go to a website and things move around until it fully loads. Okay, the more that happens, the more Google doesn't like it. And same thing with largest contentful paint. That's whatever the largest piece of content is on a web page, which is usually an image. And this gets back into some of these technical things about optimizing your images. However long that takes to load, and that is what that means. And you go to some of these web pages, and this is why you have to refresh your website on a regular basis, because this is something that's come into play over the past few years with the mobile first indexing and page load speed. And when you have large images, or it takes up bandwidth, it increases the load time of that website or that web page. And a few years ago, it wasn't that big of a deal, but now it is. And you go to some websites and they have a 7 megabyte image on there. That's a problem. And something to realize that from a technical standpoint, and Google has said this themselves, that they don't rank websites, they rank web pages. So your home page to Google, it's just another page. That's not your website. Okay, that's just another page. And they rank web pages, not websites. So I think that's something to keep in mind. And the featured snippets, that goes back to how your content is created, like bullet points, numbered lists, things like that. That will increase your chances of getting that featured snippet. But yeah, the Core Web Vitals, that's something that is just it's a subset of SEO itself, just like structured data is a subset of SEO. And these things they're just going to continue in importance because Google is all about page load speed almost to a fault. I mean, Google will cache a web page for 1,000 years. I mean, you almost have to clear your cache and do a hard refresh before they'll show an uncached page. But they're going to do what they're going to do. So it's important to go back and look at your website. If you haven't looked at and refreshed your website in the past 2 or 3 years, you probably really need to do that, because there's probably some issues that need to be addressed.
Yeah. And that whole thing around Core Web Vitals, right, and user experience, like you said, so much of it comes down to speed, right? So how fast is your site? How fast is your page loading? And that needle's moved, right? Like you said. So what was acceptable 2-3 years ago has changed, right? And it's just the search engines are just getting faster and faster and faster. They're expecting that pages are going to come up a lot faster, and that's reflected in how the search engines rank a particular page. So it does make a huge difference. So yeah, so important to keep on top of that.
I think the word that's come up several times that needs to be emphasized even more is experience.
Yeah.
When we talk about the early days of SEO, Google was measuring things. We talked about keyword stuffing. Example is if I'm looking for a plumber, the best plumber in Austin is the plumber in Austin who knows, how to do things better than every other plumber in Austin. It's pretty clear that content was trying to optimize for plumber in Austin. And if all Google did was count how many times that occurred, you won. And that didn't take long for that to fall by the wayside. Page load speed, that plays into the experience. The content, the way the content's written plays into the experience. Google had the EAT algorithm. They wanted expertise, the content that was talking about, demonstrating expertise in an area, the authority, the other websites that we're linking in. That's where backlinks start to come into play. If other websites consider your site valuable, then it probably is. And trust. What trust factors do you have on your site? And now they've added E in front of EAT. So it's EEAT. And the first E is experience. And that's going to dominate where things go in 2024. The speed has everything to do with the experience. The content on your site, is it helpful versus fluff versus keyword stuff? It has everything to do with that. A variety of formats for people that want to listen, for people that want to read, for people that want to watch, has everything to do with the experience. The navigation, the flow, the setup, the overall website being scored, not just page by page basis. Yes, they'll look at pages, but if there's a lot of garbage on the site, it's gonna drag the whole thing down. It's all about the experience, and that's where Google's going. And when we get into the SGE, the search generative experience, that has a lot to do with how Google presents things and the experience they provide. And I think we might get into that in a minute, but AI is changing the world, and the fundamentals are still going to be there, but how you set things up in the website, how you create content, how you present them, is going to take on even greater importance going forward.
Yeah. So Google's Eat. Yeah, it's not just about food. It's not recipes. It's
Experience.
EEAT. Yeah.
Yep.
So experience, expertise, authority, and trust. Right?
And the
what it was.
first, and I think dominating one going forward, is the experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jeff, what are some other common SEO mistakes that businesses should avoid, particularly as we go forward into 2024 and beyond?
Yeah, so I think we kind of hit on some of the obvious ones. The don't neglect the speed of the site. Make sure you're taking advantage of everything Google or other search engines offer for finding content on your site, and that means using the schema markup and the metadata. Other offsite signals, social media is important. Social media can drive traffic to your website, and if Google sees traffic coming from, because Google sees all, right? I mean, if you want to get a feel for it, look at your Google Analytics. But when you see traffic coming from social media sources, Google's going to say, "Hey, that's means other people are finding it and they're coming to it because they think it's valuable." So social media signals, other offsite signals, can be very powerful. And then we talked about some of the negative things that don't keyword stuff, don't write fluff content, don't put stuff out that's garbage just to have fillers, and the importance of going back and looking at old content and maybe pruning it out or updating it. I think those are all fundamental. But then when you get into the kind of the next level, what's coming and what's next, some of the mistakes I think that need to be avoided in 2024. Don't ignore those Google Analytics and the Search Console information. Use all the information that Google is giving you to help improve and to help you better. But then we got to get into AI, and the AI and the trend in AI. And a lot of people are scared by AI. A lot of people are intrigued by it. A lot of people are enthused about it. But here's the thing: AI, and I think it was a quote from I had it noted. Patrick Stocks at Ahrefs, one of the big tools that we use. Generative AI, in other words, AI that can generate content for you. Generative AI sets the bar your content must beat. And if you think about it, generative AI, having access to these large language models where you can go into a chat GPT and you can say, give me 1,000 words on, common mistakes to avoid in plumbing projects. Everybody can have those 1,000 words and everybody can post them on their website. Sure, they're going to be worded a little differently, but it's now the mediocre middle that everybody has. You've got to beat that. You've got to be above that bar if you want to win at search and win the rankings. So I think paying attention to the tools, how things are being done, and then leveraging them is going to be super important in 2024. And part of that is recognizing how fast things are changing and keeping up with it. And then again, I go back to, that means invest the time, pay attention to all the sources, or work with somebody that does that.
Yeah.
Um,
It did the point about the AI, right, and the AI generated content. That's such an important one because like we just talked about, like AI has just absolutely exploded onto the scene over the last year, and apart from OpenAI and ChatGPT and um, all the big tools out there, there's so many software tools that are popping up every single day to help people produce content. That, like you said, that's kind of like the lowest bar now for
mhm.
content generation. So, what are your thoughts on websites and people that use AI to produce content?
Yeah, I think, when you go back to the experience, using AI, it's an incredibly powerful tool. But if you want to go back to the experience that you provide to the users, if you want to go back to being helpful, are you really being helpful if you're just saying the same thing everyone else is? No, you've got to bring in your own case studies, your own stories, your own experiences, your own insights. And that's one thing that AI can't do because at least not right now. Yeah, it can gather up this large language model, this large pool of information that it's scraped off of the web and whatever other sources have been fed into it. And it can assimilate the most probable or most common answer. And to an extent, it can infer what's next from that, but it's not at the level that we are, right? The human connection of the stories, the experiences we can share, the insights we have to offer. It's almost like AI can generate, a middle school or high school paper. It can't generate a PhD thesis because, by definition, a PhD thesis has to be a contribution to knowledge. And AI is working off knowledge that already exists and maybe extrapolating it. But if you want to have the true value add, the true helpful content for your audience, you've got to have the human and the experience and the authority that comes from the human aspect of it. And then use the AI tools as a jumpstart. Use them to automate some of the more mundane tasks. Use them to do the research, but always check because the AI has been shown to make things up. But
Yeah,
use it as a tool. Don't be afraid of it, and use it as a starting point, and then go from there.
yeah, absolutely. I agree with so much of what you're saying there. Is you can use AI to generate all sorts of content, right? And we've seen people do that, right? In the last year, they're just rushing to put out stuff, and it just looks like garbage. Or it's not particularly helpful because it's very generic, like you said.
Mhm.
So having that value add, right? So I'm the expert on this topic, and here's what I'm going to add to this, or I'm going to show you how it applies, right? um, um, Adding in that level, I think, is really what makes helpful content helpful.
Right.
um, but I think it's a good point, though, that doesn't mean that you should avoid the AI altogether.
Oh,
Use
absolutely
it as
not.
a starting point, right? Like, it can actually help you to create frameworks, and then you add that level of value add on top.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Um,
Ian also had some thought, not so much on the AI it's specifically, but he's had some thoughts on some of these SEO strategies. So let's see what he had to say.
sure.
Some common SEO mistakes that I think small businesses need to avoid, from my perspective, for sure, are what Jeff has shared. I think one of the things that everybody should understand is that the biggest mistake I see is not building a website properly. Everybody who builds websites, who's a website developer, has a little bullet point on their website saying, hey, we do SEO. But there's a lot more that goes into SEO than just building the site and putting a plugin on your website. So I think it's really important for businesses to invest wisely in an SEO optimized website that has an SEO plan behind it and SEO research that's performed prior to the optimization. The other thing I think that's a mistake is thinking that a tool like Yoast or Rank Math on a plugin on your website is what optimizes your website. That, in fact, is just a tool that helps you optimize it effectively. It actually doesn't do the optimization. The optimization is done by the SEO expert who understands what keywords people are searching for, what the page should be ranking for, and giving it the right inputs through the tool in order to make it rank. A couple other things that I think are mistakes are not seeing SEO as an ongoing investment. SEO is not a one and done play. It is an ongoing investment that small businesses should invest as much as they can in, as early as they can, that is balanced with generating immediate leads, but they should be investing, they should be planting this tree that will bear fruit for years and years following. If you don't plant the tree early enough, you won't get the fruit early enough. So you need to look at it, first of all, as getting in where you can, how you can, as early as you can, and then investing in it in an ongoing way. And lastly, I think another mistake is that businesses don't always measure the return on investment of SEO and organic results well. And I think this is really important, because why would you keep doing ongoing investment into SEO if you actually don't know what it's doing for your business as far as generating new leads, helping your business grow? So those are some additional things that I think are really valuable for businesses to avoid, mistakes to avoid from an SEO standpoint.
Again, so much great stuff to unpack for me in there. Based on all that, so we, hearing about the mistakes to avoid, Paul, where do you think SEO is going in the future, and what can local small businesses do to prepare for those upcoming changes?
Well, I think, one of the things, and, there's a lot of overlap between these discussion points we're going through here. The rise of voice search, I mean, search engines love voice search because it gives them more data to collect on people, but it's going to increase the importance of long tail keywords because people search differently. And I mean, it's not a small minor difference. The way they search, if they have to type something in, and as opposed to if they can just, talk into their phone, it's completely different. And Google recognizes this. And so it's going to make long tail keywords more important, but also the way content is written. We've talked about keyword stuffing and how it doesn't work. And Google has gotten really good about recognizing user intent from which is something we really haven't talked about, but the intent of the search, is it transactional? Is it informational? What are they looking for? Because we've talked in the past about the whole buyer's journey, and it's convoluted. It's not a straight line, but there is a pattern that first, maybe they're like, let's say it's a new homeowner that has never had to deal with having a new roof. Okay, so what's that process? So you start out in the educational phase, and then you start looking for roofing companies, and then you start looking for reviews and going back to that expertise and authority. And as they go down this path, eventually they'll hire someone. But how the content is written, and you need to have content for these different stages of the buyer's journey. And I think that's one thing that in the past, like, it's not entirely new, but it's going to become more and more important as the algorithms get more and more sophisticated.
Yeah. That is such important insight there around where SEO is going, and just that constant evolution, right? That evolution from just straight up text-based to voice-based, and understanding search intent. Tell us a little bit more about search intent, because you're right, that was such an important topic and we didn't really get into that. So, for our listeners, can you kind of give them a brief overview of search intent and why it's so important?
Yeah, so the thing with, you have different when someone searches for something, okay, they're at a certain stage in the buyer journey. So goes back, first is informational. That's like how-to videos, or what is this, or what does this or that do? And then you have, and I'm just going to give it like a high level overview here. Then you have navigational, and they're looking for, usually that's something like Twitter login, or they're looking for a specific.
So it's not like navigation necessarily in the map.
Right. They're looking for how do I guess the best way is where's my login for this particular website? Okay. SEM rush login, something like that.
Yeah. So looking for a specific page or a specific.
Right. Or some plumbing company contact.
Right.
Something like that. How, tech support for this or that. They're looking for, something specific in that sense. And then there's transactional, and that's usually where you're like, buy this or buy that. They're looking to make a purchase of a product or service. And then you have commercial, and that's where they have transactional intent, but it's more like best coffee maker. Okay, it's they're right. I look at it as they're right before that actual transactional search, like best coffee makers, or best, PlayStation 5 versus Xbox. Okay, they're
So, like people are like researching like different types of
right,
products and
right.
services.
They're almost ready to make that decision, but they're looking for a little bit more information, and they're comparing products. That's kind of how I look at commercial. So you have basically informational, navigational, transactional, and commercial, and you need to have content for all of those stages, because think about how you do a search. And sometimes they'll skip over something. Maybe you already have a pretty good idea. You're looking to replace the siding on your house, and you have a pretty good idea that, okay, you have vinyl siding, and you have
Stucco or whatever.
concrete
Yeah,
siding,
sure.
hardy type siding, concrete siding. So you have a pretty good idea. So now it's like, why should I make the investment in a James Hardy type siding? Because that's a huge investment. You're talking about a lot of money. So that may be where they just skip to the vinyl versus concrete siding, and it's okay, if I make this investment one time, it's done. I'm going to stay in my house. It's got a 50-year guarantee, whatever it is. And yes, I'm paying a lot of money up front, but I'll never have to do it again. So they may skip directly to that, compare this and that may be a very, very short thing. And then they go right to the transactional. So it's what I said earlier. It's the buyer's journey is not a linear curve. It's not a straight line thing. And they will skip over certain steps, but not everyone will. So you have to have content that addresses these different search intents.
Yeah, and I think that's it's peeling back the layers of the onion. Like not all search is equal, right? So like you said, there's these different types of search intents, and buyers at different stages will search for different types of information. Sometimes they're just looking for kind of general stuff. Sometimes they're looking for information about a particular product. Sometimes they're looking for reviews. Sometimes they're looking for a helpline. Sometimes, right? So, and it's understanding all those different types of search intent and how they all kind of come together in that buyer's journey. And now that's gotten even more complicated with it's being, you've got voice and video added into all those categories as well. So, Jeff, what do you think? Where do you see the future of SEO going, and your thoughts on how local small businesses can prepare for these upcoming changes?
Yeah, I think going back to what Paul said, understanding intent and buyer's journey, and intent and voice, they're all wrapped up. In the early days, it was just match a few keywords because people were just typing a few keywords. And now when people can speak, they can speak whole sentences faster than they can type 3 keywords. So the intent starts to come out based on the questions they ask, and understanding that and matching your content to the buyer's journey stages and making sure you've got something for everyone at the different levels is important. But I also think we're going to see, because of some of the higher level stuff's doing, like the search generative experience that Google's heading toward, some of the fluff, almost the basic informational stuff that you can get anywhere, I think is going to go down in importance. I'm not saying don't have it, don't educate and inform your audience, because there's other ways that people are going to get to your website besides just search, right? So if they get to your website, they still want to see that you know what you're talking about and you have the answers and can educate and inform them. But I think in general, from the search point of view, the SEO point of view, I think we're going to see maybe some of the informational stuff kind of diminishing in importance a little bit, but the focus on the helpful content, the stuff that you can add value with, is going to increase. So again, I'm not saying don't have the informational stuff for the basic content. Make sure you've got that, but the emphasis is going to be on the helpful, more authoritative, more experience-oriented content that people are going to be looking for.
Yeah.
Well, and so what you said about the informational stuff, this goes back, we've talked about omni-channel, marketing, and YouTube, the biggest search category, if you will, on YouTube really is informational. How do I do this? How do I do that? So maybe you post those kinds of videos if it's relevant to your business. You put that on YouTube and you embed it on your website, and that you have the content there. And most people they'd rather watch a video, especially if it's a how-to video, because you can show you can show a lot more in a video than you can with written content. So it's like I said, you may not write a blog post about how to do something, but you may post a video on YouTube and then embed that on your website.
Yeah, you mentioned YouTube and video, the importance of video at the top of the show, Paul, and I thanks for reminding us about that and circling back to that. A lot of people may not realize that YouTube is a search engine in its own right, and it's actually the #2 search engine behind Google. And oh, by the way, YouTube is owned by
Google.
So they're going to work hand in hand. But a lot of people, and it is somewhat generational, but a lot of, especially the younger generations, they won't Google anything. They'll go to YouTube and search for it because they're looking for that video. They're looking for the video explanation. That kind of brings up the fact that it's not just posting a video, it's knowing how to leverage YouTube as a search engine to be found as well. So there's SEO around videos. It's a whole subsector of your overall SEO strategy for your business. It's not just how to create and post videos, but it's how to set them up properly, how to have the proper tagging in place so that they can be found on the YouTube search engine.
So Jeff, that point, I think you could take that and make that even a little bit more broad, right? In the sense that it's not just about producing content anymore, right? There used to be a time where, marketers, and particularly digital marketers, were all about content marketing. You have to produce all this content and keyword stuffing and all the stuff that we talked about over the course of the show, things that happened in the past. And I'm not saying the content's not important, but I think what has really kind of come out of all these discussions we've had here and all the things that we've talked about is if you're producing content, it needs to be optimized for search, and it needs to be optimized for different types of search on different types of search platforms, right?
Yeah, I actually wrote down a note when I was doing my show prep. The saying used to be that content is king.
Yeah.
And I think that's changed too. It's more like content is the price of entry. Good, authoritative, helpful content written for the audience you're going after and set up to be found is what's you're going after. That's what's king now. It's not just content.
Yeah. And I think that is probably the best way that we could wrap this up here. Let's maybe if there's anything you want to add there, Paul, before we wrap up the show.
I just think, like Jeff just said, that content is kind of the entry point, if you will, and these things are just going to continue to evolve. That this pace of change is going to increase, and it's kind of touched on this earlier. 6-7 years ago, if you're a small business owner, you could probably spend a couple hours a week and do a lot of these things yourself. And now I just don't think that's the case anymore, because there's so much involved, and everything works together. There are no SEO silos, if you will. Everything has to work together in a holistic manner. And if you don't do that, and like I said, it's less critical, I think, for small local businesses, because it's all relevant on your competition, but it's still relevant to you, because the search engines are what they are, and the algorithms are what they are, and they're going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I mean, what a great quote to kind of wrap us up on. So I just want to say thank you to each of our marketing experts. So to Jeff and Paul, as well as Ian, that was able to contribute videos for sharing their insights. And thank you especially to our audience today for joining us. I hope you found this topic valuable. If you have, please share this link with other businesses who you think could benefit from it. And be sure to follow us or subscribe to our podcast on any of the major podcast platforms. So until next week, keep calm and market on.